me when I start talking.
Okie dokie. Okay. Hold on. You can start. Go, you're on.
Oh, good. Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Haven. I want to thank MWA NorCal for sponsoring this series. This is the Facebook Live series on different phases, different things about writing. Today, we're going to be talking about putting humor into a mystery. I've entitled this, as I hope you can see by this PowerPoint thing right here, comedy can be murder, and we're going to kind of move on from there. Anyway, hi, welcome everybody. So Milton Berle, an American comedian, once said laughter is an instant vacation. So when you add a little humor to your work, you're not only giving the reader a good story to read, you're also sending them on a mental trip to the Bahamas. Sunshine for the soul. So let's think funny. However, Mark Twain once said, "The more you explain it, the more I don't understand it." Often, the more you explain humor, the less funny it becomes. So this session right here might not be a laugh riot, but many of you are here to pick up a few tips on the technique of adding humor to your stories. So if you have a few laughs as well, let's consider that a bonus. I may write funny, but I take the writing of it very seriously, and so should you. We are first and foremost authors, writers, novelists, not stand-up comedians. And what qualifies me to talk about humor? Absolutely nothing, but chutzpah. Back in my youth, I wrote humorous ad copy for No Soap Radio. I did nightclub acts for performers. I had 2 funny plays produced in New York City at Playwrights Horizon and off Broadway. And my novels run the gamut in the use of humor. The Alvarez family murder mysteries are sparkly, bright, sophisticated, very today, and hopefully hilarious in some scenes. The Persephone Cole vintage mysteries are more homey. They're grounded in World War II, so they're not as funny. But the humor comes out mostly with the protagonist being a misfit and one of the nation's first female PIs. So it's more chuckles than outright laughter. Then Murder Under the Big Top is a noir mystery where everyone comes on scene with a secret. So the humor comes out in occasional remarks or observations certain characters make. So there's not a great deal of humor in it, but it's there somewhere. So what I'm going to ask you to do is suspend your disbelief and pretend that I know what I'm talking about for at least the next 25 minutes or so. Thank you. So what is comedy? Well, here is the boring Webster Dictionary definition. And it goes on. It's a play, a movie of light and humorous character with a happy or cheerful ending, blah, blah, blah. Any comic or humorous incident or series of incidents. So yawn, we're going to rework this definition because this really does not tell the total story at all. The Greeks had it, though. Comedy is the direct opposite of tragedy. Think of the Greek masks. For everything in the world that can be dramatic, there is the ability for it to be comic. Absolutely anything can be funny, and nothing is too sacred. Just ask Mel Brooks, who made fun of World War II and Hitler in The Producers, and David Sedaris, who wrote a funny memoir called Now We Are Five, about the suicide of his sister. Here's a caveat, though. I personally don't know if The Producers would have been the success it was if Mel Brooks was not a Jew. And David Sedaris was writing about the suicide of his sister. If he had written it about the sister of the man across the street, I don't think anybody would have bought it. When you are writing that kind of deep, dark humor, usually your audience or reader has to know that you have the right to do so, that there's a justification that you really know what you're talking about and you have earned it. That is the difficulty with this kind of dark humor, and why only people as Mel Brooks and David Sedaris are, with so much talent and so much knowledge of humor, were able to do. But it can be done, and people have done it, and he has made millions of dollars off the producers. I'm talking about Mel Brooks. Okay, so now we're going on. So hopefully the knowledge that these two run side by side, humor and tragedy, it's everywhere, and it will open the world for you. If you want to put humor in your book, no matter what the subject, you really can do it. But humor comes out of what? So anger, it can. Pain, it can. Sorrow, it can. But it also comes out of joy, happiness, and love. In short, every single human emotion has the possibility of being tragic or humorous. They run parallel all the time. And really fine writers of even literature that's gone on for thousands of years, these people have known that you can run them parallel if you know what you're doing. Okay. And so just to make sure you've got it, humor is the yang to tragedy's yin. I just love this picture here, so I had to put it in. Okay. Let's go through the 9 categories of humor. Although in usage, it's often a combination of more than one. Physical and slapstick humor. And some classic examples of this is Charlie Chaplin or the Three Stooges. In writing, one of the people that really excelled in physical descriptions was P.G. Wodehouse. He was able to paint funny pictures with all of his descriptions or words. Take Right Ho Jeeves. The character of Bertie Wooster says, I'm going to read this. You know how it is with some girls. They seem to take the stuffing right out of you. I mean to say, there's something about their personality that paralyzes the vocal cords and reduces the brain to cauliflower. It was like that with this Bassett and me. So much so that I have known occasion when for minutes at a stretch, Bertram Wooster might have been observed fumbling with the tie, shuffling the feet, and behaving in all other respects in her presence like a complete dumb brick. Notice that he's creating a humorous picture with his choice of words. Stuffing paralyzes the vocal cords, cauliflower, ending with complete dumb brick. And also note, he didn't write behaving like a dumb brick in her presence. He reversed it. He saved the punchline for the very end of the sentence, complete dumb brick. There's also self-deprecating humor. This makes people feel comfortable because the person is real. It's a real and humble person, and it makes themselves vulnerable enough to laugh at themselves. This is a device often used by writers of young female protagonists. It shows our culture. I actually use it myself. I put in here from time to time. I think I probably use it a lot more than that. However, one of the best examples is Groucho Marx, who once said, I wouldn't want to belong to a club that would have me as a member. You can't get any more self-deprecating than that. Okay, surreal or absurd humor. This is the kind of humor in a story that takes the world and flips it upside down. Alice at the Tea Party, or My In-Laws. The result is so odd and strange that it can end up being funny, like Monty Python. This humor shows largely intelligent and rational characters reacting in realistic ways, but in a situation that's absurd. In The Holy Grail, The Black Knight believes he can still put up a fight, though his arms and legs have been hacked off. I can still bleed on you. That's absurd. Improvisational or improv humor. Improv is a form of live theater where everything is made up on the spot, but we're not dealing with that. You're writing something and you're rewriting it several times, so goodbye improv. But it is a good way to get things rolling. And that's kind of what stream of consciousness writing is all about. Stephen King once said, I want to put a group of characters in some sort of predicament and then watch them try to work themselves free. You can apply the same thing to humor in your writing. Have a conversation between yourself and your characters and see what it gets you. The witty or dry humor, sometimes called deadpan, highbrow, quippy, repartee, witty conversation, wisecrack, quick, clever, droll, wry, sarcastic. Whatever you call it, this is an intelligent kind of humor that is the complete opposite of slapstick humor. Witty humor sometimes uses irony, sarcasm, satire, parody, but not always. An example of witty humor using irony and sarcasm is, some cause happiness wherever they go, others whenever they go. That's Oscar Wilde. Can't get much better than that. Wordplay humor or puns. A pun is a literary device that is also known as a play on words. Puns involve words with similar or identical sounds, but with different meanings. They play on words, relies on a word or phrase having more than one meaning. They're generally intended to be humorous, but they often have a more serious purpose in literary works. Dorothy Parker. You can lead a horticulture, but you can't make her think. Observational humor. This is the type of humor most often used by stand-up comics. They find bits of humor in examining our day-to-day lives. Back to author David Sedaris. He's a good example of observational humor. Sometimes the sins you haven't committed are all you have left to hold on to. And in writing, and this one is, I think, very true for all of us, writing gives you the illusion of control. And then you realize it's just an illusion, that people are going to bring their own stuff into it. Now, notice that he also, when he's trying to be humorous, will use the word like stuff. It's a very casual, laid back word, and it always makes you smile. If he'd used another word, might have been a different thing. Potty humor. Okay, I had to put this in because it's one of the 9. All right. Sometimes called juvenile humor, gag jokes, toilet humor. So, but unless your audience is a 12-year-old boy, we're going to move on. But first, here's an example. Everybody wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change the toilet paper roll. Bada boom. Dark humor. Other words to describe it. Grim, black, bitter, amusement, gallows, grotesque, sick. The concept of Black humor came around in 1965, and that's pretty late to enter the world of humor, 1965, but it was brought to America by a man called Bruce J. Friedman. I won't go into all of this stuff, but it's here if you wanted to read it a little bit later on. But comics like Lenny Bruce, who since the late 1950s has been labeled sick comic by mainstream journalists, have also been labeled with Black comedy. This can be the most difficult style to pull off. I'll give you an example. Question. And it's a stupid example, okay? Question, why don't cannibals eat clowns? Answer, because they taste funny. That probably could go back in the juvenile humor too. All right. But all of that said, all those 9 things, and most of the time they're all combined into other, they're all mixed together. Humor has to be honest. As Lenny Bruce once said, back to Lenny, the only honest art form is laughter, comedy. You can't fake it. Try to fake 3 laughs in an hour. Ha ha, ha ha, ha ha. They'll take you away, man. You can't. So the cornerstone of truth is also in humor. This is true, of course, for any writing. Everything we write is based on reality of one form or another. So sometimes we're standing beside the cornerstone of truth, as in memoir, autobiography, biography, nonfiction. You know, how to build a chair. You have to stay pretty close to the truth when writing those. Sometimes the truth is in the next room, such as in genre fiction, a love story, mystery, action, etc. Sometimes it's across the street or maybe on another planet, as with sci-fi, dragons, vampires, zombies, so on. But the truth is always there somewhere, even if you are creating a parallel universe, or else your reader cannot relate to it. But why add humor to your mystery? There are really 4 good reasons. Humor can add depth, color, and layer to your protagonist, main characters, and even minor ones. It helps to flesh out the story or plot. It relieves tension, and that often should be number 1 when you're writing on a serious subject. And then the 4th reason, why not? So, as Sam Spade said, the cheaper the crook, the gaudier the patter. This line comes from the Maltese Falcon. In that one sentence, Dashiell Hammett shows the reader the intelligence, cynicism, courage, and quick wit of his protagonist. Here is not your ordinary private investigator. Also, it makes the reader just love him. When you read that about Sam Spade, having him say that, you just love this guy. So Hammett was pretty dang smart. In Agatha Christie's writing of Hercule Poirot, while he is a man who never misses anything, she uses his vanity to poke fun at him, to make him more human and approachable, one of us. Man. Morning, sir. I've got a parrot here for Mr. Poirot. 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 It is pronounced Poirot. Man. Beg pardon, Governor. I've got a Poirot for Mr. Poirot. Okay. 2, it fleshes out your story or plot. Now, E.M. Forster, and of course, we're going to get a little, artsy here sometimes, in his Aspects of the Novel, 1927, defines story as the chronological sequence of events and plot as the causal and logical structure which connects these events. So the basic story, which can be funny or not funny, okay? Boy gets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back. Here's a funny plot possibility. Boy woos girl at hoedown. Boy spends night with girl's younger sister. Girl runs away with trombonist. Boy inherits millions. Girl gets boob job. Boy finds girl and proposes. Moral, 2 fakes can get you 1 blue white diamond. Okay. 3, it relieves tension. Inherit the Wind, a 1955 play written by Jerome Lawrence and Robert E. Lee, is about the monkey trials of the 20s and a deeply serious subject, evolution versus the Bible. Because the subject was so heavy, the play was riddled with funny lines. For instance, Bible salesman. Are you an evolutionist, an infidel, a sinner? E.K. Hornbeck. The worst kind. I write for a newspaper. So you can think about examples of tension being relieved in a novel by the use of humor, because it is done all the time. Then 4, well, why not? Almost everyone believes they have a sense of humor and can appreciate a good laugh. So go with it. The human animal is funny. We really are. The world is funny. By not putting something funny in your writing, you might be missing out on a huge chunk of the world. And I know that somewhere out there, someone is writing a book right now, a funny book about the coronavirus. You can bet your bottom dollar they are. And if they're good at what they're doing, if they know how to make it happen, if they make the reader feel that it's justified, that that writer has the right to do it, that they know what they're talking about, they are going to be able to write something funny about the coronavirus. It will happen. Okay. How to add humor to your novel. What kind of humor should you inject into your novel? So you should start with writing what you think is funny. Don't write what I think is funny or anybody else. And how you think you should get there. Let it evolve. If it doesn't work, take it out. Remember, if you're uncomfortable with a subject or a style, don't write it in your novel. Trust yourself. But also, as writers, we need to explore and push our boundaries. So maybe you want to think about putting it in. Once again, you could always take it out. Concentrate on your readership dynamics. Who reads your novels? Who do you hope will read your novels? If you're going for YA, young adults, you wouldn't throw in any references to Bob Hope or Mae West, but maybe Asa Butterfield. Now, I do not even know who this kid is. I found him on Google. He seems to be the #1 teenager that all the kids throughout the world are looking up to. So he may be somebody you want to put into your novel, and I just found his name. Great name, though, Asa Butterfield. Okay. Stay within what your readers will understand and accept. If you're going for an older group, educated people, if that's your readership, you might want to include that cute couple, Bob Hope and Mae West. But once again, you have to write what you think is funny. Also, it's the contract with your reader. Now, this is something that is true for anything we write. Anything we write, there is that contract with the reader. It's important that your reader knows exactly what kind of read they're going to have within the first few paragraphs of a book, and also with the blurb. I'll be reading the blurbs. And this is true for humor as well. They usually are going to know with the blurb and with the first few paragraphs, the amount and the kind of humor that's going to be there. It's going to be shown to them. The reader may be surprised by something that gets said in the book or written in the book, and they should be, but not shocked. You want to surprise them, not shock them. In my humble opinion, the opening paragraph of the Judas Goat is one of the best to exemplify this. It not only reveals the storyline and characters, but shows just how much humor the reader can expect from this book. The Judas Goat by Robert B. Parker. The blurb. Spencer has gone to London, and not to see the Queen. He's gone to track down a bunch of bombers who've blown away his client's wife and kids. His job is to catch them or kill them. His client isn't choosy. But there are 9 killers to 1 Spencer, long odds. Hawk helps balance the equation. The rest depends on a wild plan. Spencer will get one of the terrorists to play Judas Goat, to lead him to others. Trouble is, he hadn't counted on her being very blonde, very beautiful, and very dangerous. Opening paragraph. Hugh Dixon's home sat on a hill in Weston and looked out over the long Massachusetts hills as if asphalt had not been invented yet. It was a big fieldstone house that looked like it ought to have vineyards, and the front entrance was porticoed. It didn't look like the kind of place where they have much truck with private cops, but you can't judge a house by its portico. I parked in the lower parking lot as befitted my social status and climbed the winding drive to the house. Birds sang. Somewhere out of sight on the grounds, I could hear a hedge being clipped. The bell made the standard high-toned chime sound in the house when I pushed the button, and while I waited for a servant to let me in, I checked my appearance reflected in the full-length windows on each side of the door. There was no way to tell looking at me that I only had $387 in the bank. 3-piece white linen suit, blue striped shirt, white silk tie, and mahogany loafers with understated tassels that Gucci would have sold his soul for. Maybe Dixon could hire me to stand around and dress up the place. As long as I kept my coat buttoned, you couldn't see the gun. So what are the clues that this is going to be a lighthearted read? Phrases like, as if asphalt hadn't been invented yet. The front entrance was porticoed. He actually really kind of invented a word. But you can't judge a house by its portico. Backing up to that porticoed word. Understated tassels that Gucci would have sold his soul for. And then at last he threw in the danger with the gun. That's a lot going on in one paragraph, but you know exactly the kind of read you are going to get. So where should the humor go in your book? Well, humor can go just about anywhere that doesn't impede characterization, action, or plot. Very important. You can't slow down the pacing or overburden your characters just for a funny line. You're not writing a joke book, you're writing a novel. When going for the funny, things to keep in mind are setup, repetition, use of certain words, images, situations, use of characters, relationships, rhythm of dialogue or thought processes, build, and then finally your closure or tags. The setup. I take a drink of water. Ta-da. Okay, so this is where you lay the foundation of the novel or incidents within the novel. This is backstory in preparation for the humor. Lay everything out for the reader you will use later on. This is often done right before. If you do it too far in advance, it might be forgotten. However, sometimes you can do it in advance, but you need to leave a reminder here or there within several scenes beforehand so it can work. You're doing a build until you get to the climax or punchlines. Diners, I'm going to read now from Diners, Dives, and Dead Ends by Terry L. Austin. Here's the blurb. I don't know if you're familiar with her work. She writes very humorous stuff. As a struggling waitress and part-time college student, Rose Strickland's life is stalled in the slow lane. But when her close friend Axton disappears, Rose suddenly finds herself serving up more than hot coffee and flapjacks. Now she's hashing it out with sexy bad guys and scrambling to find clues in a race to save Axton before his time runs out. With her enemy-loving bestie and her septuagenarian boss and a pair of IT wise men along for the ride, Rosie goes from 0 to 60 and quickly learns when you're speeding down the fast lane, it's easy to crash and burn. That's what she says. So you know by what she's done with the blurb, we're going to have offbeat characters. There's going to be a lot of action. It's going to build to tension. She sets a lot up in her blurb. And here's an excerpt, a setup for the conflict from chapter 2. But she does it in a very short amount of time. Once she was gone, I faced Axton, pushed aside the salt and pepper shakers, and leaned on my forearms. I gave him a narrow-eyed look designed to make him spill his secrets. What did you do last night, and what kind of a favor do you need? Can't tell you where I went, but I need you to take my backpack for a day or two, keep it someplace safe. Now I knew something was wrong. Axton without his backpack? That'd be like Linus without his blanket. Axe toted that thing everywhere. He probably slept with it. Are you in some kind of trouble? No, no trouble. His knee bobbed even faster than before. Will you help me out? He gazed at me with an emotion I didn't recognize. Anxiety, maybe? Sure, Axe, whatever you need. His shoulders sagged in relief. Stupid me, I should have never let him drive away. So what is the reader anticipating with this type of a setup? Axton, a major player and good friend of Rose's, is in trouble. The tension created by Axton doing something unusual, giving Rose his backpack. and the foreboding of the protagonist, Rose, with the final chapter, a line of chapter 1, when all done with this lighter touch of humor. When adding a colorful side character, brevity is really the key. You can create a funny flaw or physical attribute in a very minor character with just a few words that makes them come alive. Now, this is also true when you're creating any character in any book, but we're going to be concentrating on humor and being funny. The man with the Dumbo ears, the woman with a skirt shorter than a Dallas cheerleader's. And if you want to practice doing this, we're talking about writing something humorous now. This is a few potential characters, or here's some you may want to do. And after you read them, you may not want to do them at all and come up with your own, whatever. Suggestions if you can't. Pet store owner, plant and quarry superintendent, water slide tester. I didn't even know they had those, and they do. IMAX screen cleaner, snake milker, mother of 10. That's a very tired person, very tired. Okay. Tattoo artist, piano tuner, Marmite taster. Moving on. Repetition stresses certain characteristics, facets of the protagonist or other important characters and situations. What time are we at? We're good. Use for emphasis and progress, a moving forward of the plot. Most things feel finished when used in threes, particularly with humor. Dead if only. I'm going to use a few excerpts from a scene from the fourth of one of my books, mainly because it was hanging around and I had it. I won't do the blurb because it's funny. I just want to go into the setup. Lee dashes to New Orleans from a vacation setting, so the only clothes she has with her are completely inappropriate, down to the suede gladiator design sandals on her feet. The weather is awful, it's hot, muggy, and wants to rain. She becomes trapped with no place to hide, but dense overgrowth behind the culprit's workplace when he arrives unexpectedly. Repetition of an image. First use of the garter snake. I managed to get in about 2 feet and came nose to nose with a garter snake hanging out on one of the limbs. I started to scream. Maybe the snake did too. But the back door flew open, banging against the tin siding with such force, we both froze. I could only pray I was inside the bushes deep enough my cobalt blue capri pants didn't show. Second use of the garter snake. More sounds of pouring liquid. I was getting nervous. Unless you were burning down the Empire State Building, it was a lot of gasoline. Stand back, Mr. Browncap ordered. I didn't hear the strike of a match, but a second later, there was more of an explosion than the roar of a bonfire. I think the snake fainted. I know I was close to it. Third use of the garter snake. I examined the drawers one by one, even removing them from the cabinets for a good look behind. I was rewarded with a crumpled sheet of paper containing email addresses and a small frog. I popped the crumpled papers into my pants pocket, snatched up the frog, because I'm not the sort of person who believes the old wives' tale about getting warts if you touch a frog, and climbed the stairs again. I thought about dropping the frog into the brush near my pal, the garter snake, but I wasn't sure about the culinary tastes of either one of them, and this had already had enough carnage for one day. Better off to release Kermit farther away, so I did. So I want to just ask Glenda, should I wind things up now? Because I think I'm at 1:35. Do you want me?
Okay. How much more do you have to go?
I don't know. Let me see. A little bit more. I probably have another 5 minutes, but I can stop at any
No,
time.
why don't you finish what you've got?
Okay.
And then I've got a couple questions, and that's
Oh, great.
fine.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. So let me just say what I accomplished with this. It's a progression of moving forward. She strikes up a relationship with the snake, but what it does is it moves my character forward. If she cares about animals, she's soft-hearted, she's also impulsive, and that's something that you really want to say. There's use of certain words. It's on this. You can go and look at it. One of the things I will say is that words like orange, funny, not so funny, really, kumquat is funnier. Look for your words. Think about words or images that are funnier than a word that you may be working with at the moment. Okay. And then go to this website, look at this. This is the quintessential play on words. It's called Who's On First. It's funny. It's been around for 80 years. It's still hilarious. It's the best comedy sketch of the 20th century by Time magazine. And it's also on YouTube. Here is the website. Go to it. If this doesn't work for you, go to YouTube. We have a use of double entendre, which is funny. Dead Red Cadillac. This is all going to be here. I'm going to go through it because I kind of running out of time. Use of situation, dying for a daiquiri. The one done by our very own Cindy Sample. She's just so funny. If you haven't read that book, it's funny. Go to her, read her book, or on this, I'm doing this out. You can always slow them down if you want to, stop them and freeze them. Character relationships with humor. Archie Goodwin and Nero Wolfe is another one. He begins. Rex Stout starts the League of Frightened Men with the relationship between Archie and Nero Wolfe. Very good. It's excellent. And who else now? Janet Ivanovich does Stephanie Plum and Lula. And what do? They move the plot along. They usually are the truth sayer. They get conflict going, and they're a way for the protagonist to talk the plot out. Then the rhythm of words, written words. Very funny, very good. You should read aloud in particular when you are talking about, when you're using humor. I have some funny stories I can tell you another time about Rita Rudner, who was a friend of mine. We both worked on Annie, the musical, together, and how she would spend weeks working out one line of a comedy skit that she was doing. Literary devices, they're all there. Sheldon Siegel runs everything through. All of his books, even so serious, have humor just running right through them. A lot of them is kind of that ouch humor, but it's all there. Where are we doing? Oh, we did that. Whoops, here we go. Ran out. Your build, delivery of the laugh line, brevity is the key. And closure. Oh, here lies W.C. Fields. I would rather be living in Philadelphia. That's his closure because he died. Before all that time, he kept saying, I'd rather be here than in Philadelphia, wherever else he was. It was a very funny thing that he wanted added to his tombstone. Okay, any device that works, use it. Don't be proud. And let's see. Go forth, write something funny. I'm done here. Email me with any questions. If you have, I know we have questions now. Just put in the subject line, comedy can be murder. And I want to thank all these people who helped me with this, dead and alive. And there we are. That's it. I'm going to now stop. I'm going to stop sharing, right? Is that what I'm doing?
Perfect. That is perfect.
Okay.
You did it. Okay. The question that came up is when you first did your first book and it had humor in it, was that planned or did it just sort of organically happen and you realized that was sort of a style of yours? You knew that you could do this.
Okay. So when I started out in New York City, I worked for No Soap Radio. And my job was to sit around along with other writers. There were 6 of us. We would sit around a table and we were actually writing comic skits that would either be 60 seconds, 90 seconds. So you had to really do it fast. For the one of our big clients was the United States Army recruiting. And so we were actually they wanted to recruit new people to join the Army. So we wrote a series of like 25 or 30 skits that we were running on the radio for this. So I sat around and I learned so much by these other writers and what we were doing. So I came to the novel writing, and I'd also written plays in New York, knowing what my style was. I still had to perfect it. Uh, and you know, it's interesting when you're writing a mystery, you have to be very careful that you are not making it so funny that the mystery gets lost in this, or that you're not trying to make it so funny, because I don't think there is anyone who can successfully write something that doesn't have the mystery be the main part of it when you're writing a mystery. Otherwise, write a joke book. So yes, I did come to it with a lot of who I am and what I wanted to write. But writing a novel, very different from writing plays, from writing skits for performers. I did that very different. It took me 6 years to write my first novel. It's not always the easiest thing in the world to do, but I love it. Okay. Did that
Um, yeah, that's great. Another question was right at the beginning of your presentation, you talked about you can make things that are, if you're angry, humorous, or you can do anything. You can flip the emotion from anger to humor or anything like that. And I wondered if you had an example maybe of your own writing of how you actually do that.
I don't really use anger in my writing. When I'm saying that, that's usually, I'll tell you, most stand-up comics, and mostly men, I've noticed, tend to use anger as part of their humor. It's never been part of mine. I write cozy, so I don't embrace the anger part of that. I don't even embrace anger in life, although you have to be angry sometimes. But I can't do that. I'm so sorry. I don't tend to write anger, or will.
Okay, that's fine. That's about it for the questions. Anything else you might want to comment on at all?
Me? Let me
Yeah,
see.
you.
Yeah, okay. No, not really. I love writing humor. I love writing it. I love putting it in. I think all great works of art, not all, most great works of art tend to have that. When you go to movies, there's always that release of tension. I would say that if you put it in your books and you're not sure you want to go that route, which is fine. You don't want to write a funny mystery, which is fine. But maybe you want to add something to it. Save it for the times when you need to release the tension of a scene, when you need that protagonist or their a character nearby to say something funny so that the reader can kind of release all this tension and have a few laughs and then go back to the serious subjects. I think if you look at, especially I'm thinking of Sheldon Siegel in this incident, because he writes very funny stuff uh, that is couched within very serious subjects, and in particular about him too, and about the character of Mike Daly. And I really like to read that kind of stuff too. And it takes a good writer to be able to write that way. But most of the people out there, especially in MWA NorCal, are good writers. There's a lot of good writers out there. And I think if maybe they just want to explore it a little bit, it might enrich their writing life. It might not, but it might. So that's what I think.
Okay, that's it for me. So you can
Good. Are
go
you
on.
going to burn that? You're going to burn this now? Okay, thank you. Am I leaving? What am I doing?
You are leaving. Thanks so
Okay,
much,
so,
Heather. We
all
really
right.
enjoyed having you.
Thank you. I want to thank Glenda Carroll and Laurie King and Laurie Sheehan for all their help with all of this, and MWA NorCal. Mwah. Thank you.